Hey Stitchers, I hope you're having a good stitching week and a good stitching month. I've been catching up with some of your whip update videos for the month, and that's really good to see all the things you've been stitching. This is my whip update for the month and also my stash acquisitions. But before I get into that, there were two things that I promised to do in this video. The first one was to do a review, a more in-depth review of my Lowry stand. Well, that kind of fitted in with the tool time tag that's been going around this week, so I put that review in that video. So if you want to learn more about Lowry work stands, then watch that video, and also make sure you watch everybody else's tool time tag videos, because there's some really interesting things that stitchers have been using to help them with their stitching and speed up their stitching process. So it's always good to learn something new from another stitcher. So yeah, watch all that stuff. The second thing I was going to talk about a little bit more about was my gridding technique. Now I know there's probably plenty of videos on YouTube about how to grid with thread and everything, but I promised to do it, so I'll do anything to help out fellow stitcher. So, in the words of Blue Peter, here is one I prepared earlier. Now obviously when I grid, just to clarify, I do not normally use DMC black thread. But obviously because I grid with metallic thread, it never shows up when I show you my whips that are gridded. So I've gridded this out in black DMC so you can see it, but just as a reminder what I choose to use, stitchers use different things, but the brand that I choose to use is the Sulky Sliver metallic thread. I think if you're gridding with thread, as I said before, the most important thing to try and get right is that you use a thread that cannot be pierced. Don't use applied thread. So even like for example, I've used DMC black to grid this. Even one strand of DMC is applied thread. It's I think it's 2 plies. Yeah, wrapped together, so it's quite easy to pierce it. Whereas this stuff, I mean, I've shown it to you before, but this stuff you can't pierce through. There are other different threads very similar to this available, but I just use this. And so here is a close-up of how I grid. Everybody does it differently. This is just what I find works for me. Initially, when I started gridding, excuse me, the only designs I grid for are Heaven and Earth designs, and when I did my first Heaven and Earth design, I put in the horizontal grid lines and the vertical grid lines. But I found, initially then of course I was gridding on 18 count Ada, but I found when I switched to 28 count over 1, obviously there's an awful lot going on in those tiny, little squares, so I thought I'd just cut down on that. I found that actually I didn't really need the vertical grid lines because I stitch in 10 by 10 blocks across the page. I stitch along the row, so I found for me having the horizontal grid lines was more important than having the vertical grid lines. Obviously if you park and stitch in columns, you might find it more useful just to put in the vertical grid lines. Vertical grid lines. It's absolutely what works best for you. I find this method works best for me. So on all my whips, you'll see I have all these grid lines going across the page. For each grid line, I use one strand of thread. So they're all individual across the page, and I grid per row of pages. So depending on how many pages wide my Heaven and Earth is, it might be 6 or 7, I will grid across all those pages. And I leave the grid lines in until I get to the very last page on that row, and then as I work down, I'll pull out the grid lines. So I leave them in because I just find it helpful just to have them there. And you'll see when I grid, some stitchers go over 10 threads, under 10 threads, over 10 threads, under 10 threads. But what I do is I go over 8 threads, under 2 threads, over 8 threads, under 2 threads. And that little gap there, where you can see no thread, that's a clear hole there. That's clear because then I know that's where that square starts. That's the first stitch in that square, although I'm looking at this back to front, so it seems odd to me. But yeah, so when I see that square there, that I can, it's hard to explain, but I just find having more gridding thread showing makes me make less mistakes. I can see more of a definite square. Some stitches, they'll do the exact opposite of what I've shown here. Here you can see the complete a complete square that's gridded out. Some stitches, what they'll do is they'll actually just stitch in that little cross. You'll see lots of little crosses on their work, which shows the corners of each square. Whereas I do the exact opposite, miss out that bit, but grid in, you know, the rest of the square going along a row. So all I do when I take my thread ready for gridding is just a little way over from the start. So imagine this is your top left-hand corner of your head, you know, of your heaven and earth design. So when I grid, I just go a little bit away from the start of the piece, and I do like a little over and under stitch just to secure the thread, and then I'll start gridding with one piece of thread, one strand of thread right the way across the page. So that's how I grid. So there you go, that's me, that's what I do. Obviously it probably won't necessarily work for you that way. There's lots of different ways to grid with thread and pen, different patterns you can make on your fabric, but that's what works best for me. I like to see as much of the grid as possible without it interfering with my stitching, so I just choose to do the horizontal lines, grid lines, not the vertical. I just put that in there just so you can see what you could do if you wanted to. So that's my gridding. So if you have any questions about that, you know what to do, just put in a comment and I'm more than happy to answer them for you. So hopefully that's cleared up how I grid, because you obviously can't see it on my whips very well. So on to the whips, and I am pleased to report that I have actually stitched on every single one of my whips this month, which is much better than last month. Last month was a poor month, this month is a bit better. Just as a reminder, these 4 whips are the only whips I have. I don't have any others hidden away that I'm not working on at the moment, and I also don't have any unfinished object UFOs. I like to finish everything I stitch, so in some stitching circles that makes me quite unusual, I know, because I don't have, you know, 10 or 20, 30 whips lying about my sewing room. I just have these. So to start off with, the first project that I worked on this month was mini watching it fly. I know quite a few of us follow each other on Instagram, so I know you've probably seen these updates, so you know how much stitching I've done this month. But anyway, usually where I can, when I work on my head, oh by the way, when I'm not working on my working on design, it's not on my frame. I keep them rolled up in poster tubes to avoid creasing. So, there you go. Yes, when I'm working on a mini watching it fly, I try to put it in my rotation in the first week of the month, and that's because over on the Heaven and Earth bulletin board, I know some of you are already on that board, so you already know this, but for those of you that are head stitchers but actually aren't on the bulletin board, what they do every week, each month, there's a different type of stitch along for that week. And the week 1 stitch along is always the smalls and mini stitch along. So basically all that happens is if you want to work on a mini that week, on the Thursday you post a before picture, so it runs from Friday of that week to the following Thursday, and then obviously when you finished your week's worth of stitching on the Thursday, then you post up an after picture. So it's just a really good way to get motivated on your Heaven and Earth designs, because we all know even the minis, even the QSs, they can take a long time to stitch, you know, especially if you don't have a lot of time to stitch. So it's always good to see other stitchers progress, and I find that really encouraging. So where I can, I do try and join in on those stitch alongs. So I think, as I said, week 1 is smalls and minis. Week 2, I think, is BAPs and UFOs. Week 3, off the top of my head, I think is detail and confetti. Week 4 is a themed stitch along on the Heaven and Earth board. Luann, one of the mods, picks different themes, so if your chart happens to fit in with that theme, then you can stitch it. I also worked on Daffodils for the week 4 stitch along. I'll show you obviously that in a minute. One of the themes that Luann picked, your chart had to contain water, and although I wasn't stitching on that part of my chart, it doesn't matter as long as your chart contains water, so I stitched along with Daffodils for that one. And occasionally when there's a 5th week in the month, that one is reserved for the stitch along for retired artists, retired charts, and sometimes it's a new start stitch along as well. So, you know, that's just a little hint. If you're on the Heaven and Earth board, you know, join in. I find it really helpful. But anyway, enough waffling. You're here to see what I've done, aren't you? So here is what Mini Watching It Fly looked like last month when well, I didn't stitch on her last month, did I? The month before that, so that would be, where are we now? June. This is what she looked like at the end of June when I last picked her up and stitched on her. And this is what she looks like now. Let me just straighten out my part threads so they don't look a complete jumble, because I've not got my needle minders on them. So here she is. You can see I stitched another page. So I started and finished page 6. It looks quite blotchy there, I assure you it isn't. If I put something behind it, the light shining through it, it does it. Yeah, you can see it's a bit more muted than it actually is. So that's her there. So I'm really, really pleased with my progress on her. She's such an easy stitch, really, really easy. I love stitching on her, so I find I can get through pages quite quickly. What I'm hoping, I've decided, I think I would really like to finish her this year. I started her November last year, so it would be nice to finish her this year. So I've got another 1, 2, 3 full pages and 5 partial pages. I can't see, I'm not looking properly, but yeah, so it's not impossible that I can finish her by the end of this year. So for those of you that like the numbers, this one is now 53% complete. How many stitches? So this month on her I stitched a page, so what's that, 7,000 something stitches on a Heaven and Earth Designs page for the regular size chart. I'm not stitching the large format, it's a regular format chart, so I don't know, about 7,000 something pages. So altogether on this whole piece is 39,290 stitches so far. The whole piece is like 74,000 stitches. So it's not outside the realms of possibility that I'll finish her. There was one stitcher that left a comment on one of my videos who wanted to see a close-up of my tent stitching. So I don't know, it's not, let's find a dark bit so you can see it. I don't know how blurry that is, probably my stitching looks really awful and untidy now, doesn't it? But there you go, that's a close-up of that one, so I hope that helps. Obviously sometimes with tent stitching, stitchers think the coverage isn't very good, or you can really tell that they're only half stitches and not full crosses, but actually I don't think you can tell. That's just me. Jessie, the lovely Jessie, she set the little challenge on one of her recent posts. It must have been your update video, Jessie. I can't remember now. But you set the little challenge about showing backs. I suppose I can show you the back of this one because I mean it's untidy. It's a Heaven and Earth design, but you know I've got no excuse really because there's only 15 colours in this one. So maybe I'll show you the back of this one. Probably won't show you the back of Daffodils because I think you'll all faint from horror. So here's the back of her. Actually, it doesn't look that bad on the camera, does it? But if you got close, it probably would. There you go. That's it. See back here, it looks fine. Yeah, this is my back. It looks really tidy. No. Yeah, so there you go. There's the back. So I did it. I'm not doing it for Daffodils though. I don't know. I might feel generous. It might make you all feel better if you see the back of Daffodils. I tell you, it's a shocking mess. Yeah, so that's Mini Watching It Fly. Hoping to get her done by the end of the year. That's kind of my goal. My little goal, you know. It's not the end of the world if I don't do it, you know. Nothing's going to happen. The world isn't going to end. But it would just be nice to finish her off because then I can start a new one. The second piece I stitched on this month was my chatelaine, Hortus Viridarium. I'd gotten up to part 3 last month, and just to remind you, this is what it looked like at the end of last month because I actually stitched on it last month. And this month again I finished another part. So I'm now on part, so this is parts 1 to 4 now. So basically all those little sort of shapes in the corners have all been filled in. and some little flowers have appeared. I'll put it a bit closer. You can see the different stitches. Obviously where you can see gaps in those shapes, they will have beads and crystals and shiny things. There's the flowers, so you can see them. But yeah, that's that one. So there's only another two, well, there are another 2 parts to go on this one, but I kind of count it as 3 parts because I leave the beading till the end. I kind of count that in my head as another part. What I would really like to do is finish this one off maybe next month, or get as close to finishing it as I can, because it's not far away from being finished really. If I just put, you know, a couple of weeks into it. We'll see how it goes, because next month there's an exciting new start that I'm looking forward to, so I might just get completely overtaken and stitch on nothing else but that. But I really would like to make some good progress with this one next month and do as much as I can to get that one finished. So yeah, that's that one. I don't know if I held it up for long enough. I never know how long to hold things up for. Yeah, so that's that one. That's all I've got to say about that, I think. Yep. The next piece I worked on was my Primitive Hair Little Red Riding Hood. She's still on the frame because she was the last piece I used for the frame for. So this is what she looked like last month, at the end of last month. And this month I just kind of wanted to make sure I finished off her skirt and the writing. So that's really was my goal. I mean, it didn't take me a whole week to do that, but I just wanted to stitch up to that point. So this is what she looks like now. So you can see, yeah, I finished off the skirt and I finished off the writing, and I know you can't see it very well, but I also did a few of the snowflakes. They don't show up very well on the camera. Obviously, I mean, I'm stitching white on cream fabric, so they're not going to stand out particularly well. But yeah, they do look nice on the fabric. Now, as I was stitching it initially, I'd picked out, well, first of all, it's a prim design, for goodness sake, so there shouldn't be any sparkle in it at all. But obviously, me being me, snow needs sparkle, so that's what I chose to do. And when I posted it up on the Primitive Hair Facebook group, Isabella didn't mind, so you know, I think it's okay. Yeah, so originally I was going to use Petite Treasure braid in PB10 and pearl. And when I stitched it, I stitched a few of them, I was like, no, I don't like the texture, there's something not quite right about it. And then I had a brainwave, which, you know, happens once in a blue moon. And I decided instead to stitch the snowflakes using, I can't remember if I showed you this before, using this thread. It's silk lame braid. Martina uses it a lot in her chatelaines. So I've got a few cards of it, as I do. But it's silk. It's basically metallic silk, really. It's silk thread. It's 92% silk, 5% rayon and 3% metallicized polyester. So it's basically silk thread with a metallic running through it. But it was much softer. It gave a much softer look. So that's what I've been stitching with snow in. So it's very soft but has a tiny little bit of sparkle. So although it is a prim design, you know, it's not full on glitter and bling, but I just wanted a little bit of something, I don't know, a little bit of something extra on it. So that's why I chose to do it. So all that's left for that one now is just to stitch, I say all that's left, is just to do that black border that goes all the way around the outside and a few of the, you know, little few snowflakes. As I scroll the frame, I'll get to those and do those. So that one hasn't got much to do really. I mean, it's all black, basically all that's left. So it'd be quite an easy thing to stitch, you know, in the evenings watching TV or whatever. I don't have to think about it too much. Although I say that, but I do find that I make the most mistakes on the simplest of designs. I don't know about you. I think I concentrate more if I tell myself it's difficult. But if I tell myself, oh yeah, this is easy, no problem, I end up making a load of mistakes. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. So this design, again, I want to focus on next month. So I think for next month, what I plan on stitching on is putting my Heaven and Earth designs to one side, and I want to focus on my chatelaine and the Primitive Hair design. and I'll have a new start next month as well, which I will talk about in a moment. So that was Red Riding Hood, and I also did Stitched On for the last week in the month, week 4. So I've just finished yesterday. I think I put the last stitch that I'm going to do in this round of my rotation on Daffodils, Heaven and Earth chart. Now this one again, like mini watching, hasn't been worked on since June. So this is what it looked like before, and pay really, really close attention to what it looked like before, because when I show you what I've stitched, it isn't going to look like a lot because this chart is huge. But I promise you I have actually stitched on it. So that's what it looked like before, and this is what it looks like now. So I hope you can see a difference. Stupid chart, it takes so long, it's going to take forever to stitch. Yeah, so that's what I've done. So as I said, again, I joined in with the week 4 stitch along on the Heaven and Earth Designs board to post the before and after photos. So these patches are lighter, but it's just the light in this room, it's not showing it up quite so well. Yeah, so that's what I've done. Obviously this one takes a lot longer to feel like you're making any sort of progress because there's so many colours. I mean, obviously, you know, stitches talk about confetti. It's a Heaven and Earth design, so that's kind of what you expect when you stitch one, especially when you stitch one that's quite detailed. But I am kind of the opinion that confetti is in the eye of the beholder. I don't really think this chart is like super confetti, you know, it's got 79 colours, which is, you know, quite a lot of colours. But when I think of confetti charts to do with Heaven and Earth, I'm kind of thinking of, you know, Josephine Wall charts. I think they are the most confetti-ridden charts ever. I don't think I'd ever stitch one. Love her art, but oh, I don't think I'd have the patience to stitch one. But yeah, this one's got a fair amount of confetti, but it's a Heaven and Earth chart, so comes with the territory really. So that's that one. Now here's a depressing fact for you all. This amount of stitching represents 6% of the chart as being completed. Now fortunately with this design I've got no end date in mind. I just stitch on it and enjoy it when I stitch on it. I'm not thinking, oh, I've got to finish it in 2 years. I think I'll be lucky to finish it in 10 years, to be honest. But as I say, it's probably the only BAP I'm going to do. I just love the artwork, so that's, you know, why I chose it. I do get tempted now and then to start other BAPs, but I just remind myself how long it's going to take and that, you know, one is enough for me. I don't mind having 2 heads in my rotation, but I would only have 1 BAP and either a QS or a mini. I just don't think I could. I really admire stitchers that stitch on several BAPs at once. I just couldn't do it myself. So yeah, there's that one. So actually this month on this one, I wrote it down. I stitched 4,220 stitches. So that's what I did on that one. So I know it doesn't look a lot, but I mean 4,000 odd stitches is not too bad in a week, I don't think. They're tent stitches, remember, so I can stitch in half the time, technically speaking. So yeah, that's the progress on that one. As I say, I'm going to put this one aside for a month and focus on my 2 non-heads next month. As far as my goal for that particular piece for this year, I think I mentioned before on the bulletin board, Heaven and Earth bulletin board, the goal I put for that one for this year was to finish the top row. So this round of stitching, I really did want to finish these pesky trees and get down to, you know, to the page line. But, you know, it's not the end of the world. I didn't manage it this time. I'll do it in another month. But basically, after I've got down to that line where the trees finish, all of this, you can see the rest of my gridding there. That's the end. That's the end of the chart. That's the full width going across. All of this bit here is all block stitching, so it won't take very long at all to go through that. It's just, you know, doing this bit. Really, it just takes time. But once I've got past it, it shouldn't take too long. So I can't see any reason, you know, barring me breaking both my arms or something. See, now I've said that, that's going to happen, isn't it? But anyway, barring any great disaster, there should be no reason why I can't stitch the rest of that and complete my goal for the year on the or my goals for the year on the bulletin board. So that was my progress for the month. So I was quite glad that I actually got through my rotation. Sometimes I can get stuck on a project if I want to, you know, do a bit more or whatever. But I did consciously try, especially with my heads, because I neglected them for a month. So I wanted to get a good portion of them done. So that's what I did. Right, so the next part of my video is my acquisitions for the month. So if you are a person that is easily enabled and does not want to be, then feel free to skip this half of my video because it's going to be all the stash. Well, I say all the stash, that makes it sound like I've gone crazy. I haven't really, I was very good. Yeah, but if you're not into stash, then feel free to switch off. Some people probably should switch off now, like Aish. You can't bear to, you won't look away. Your eyes will be glued to the screen to see what I bought. Although you know a lot of what I bought because you've seen it on Instagram. But some things, I haven't put everything up on Instagram. So, first off, with stash, I think I've had a few things this month which really prove that Stitchers are some of the nicest people you will ever meet. So I thought I would mention those 3 things because I think Stitchers are great and I think we're all quite generous, really. Not only with our time but also with our materials. I've sent things to people, people have sent things to me. That's how it works. What goes around comes around. But you may remember in my stitching wish list, one of the charts I wanted to stitch was a Scarlet letter chart, and I know that Christy has got some in her stash that she wants to stitch next year as well. Well, when I think of Scarlet letter charts, to me, there's one stitcher that comes to mind, and she's a phenomenal stitcher. She's got a lovely blog called Stitching by Cornish Shore, or something like that. Her name's Nicola Parkman. She doesn't actually live that far away from me. So I had a few questions about Heaven and Earth designs, we've done those, about Scarlet letter samplers. And so I emailed her and asked her opinion on a few things. And I noticed that on her blog she's got beautiful pictures of her stitching. If you like reproduction samplers, check out her blog. She's an amazing stitcher. And there's also 2 other blogs that she helps run, 2 Scarlet letter blogs. Basically, Nicola had, either last year or the year before, she had a Scarlet letter year where she encouraged like-minded stitchers to stitch along with her as many Scarlet letter samplers as they could, and they've collated all this information into a blog so you can see lots of finishes, and it was so popular that they actually had to create 2 blogs to accommodate all the stitchers that wanted to join in. So if you're interested in Scarlet letter designs or reproduction samplers, I will link not only Nicola's blog but also the 2 Scarlet letter blogs as well, because there's lots of lovely eye candy there. But I digress. I mentioned to Nicola the fabric that she uses for her Scarlet letter designs, because I was just going to use Edinburgh linen, I think, 36 count Edinburgh linen. But I noticed that she used another fabric which I mentioned at the end of my fabric video called Flober. It's sort of 35, 36 count fabric. And I just asked her, why she chose that particular fabric, because it's not a fabric I was familiar with. And so she offered to send me a little swatch of fabric, and I said, oh, that's fantastic, that's great, thinking she'd send me, I would have been happy with a little 2 by 2 inch piece. But what she sent me is quite a substantial little piece, really, so I could really get a good idea of the fabric. So that's the Flober fabric. The thing that makes it different and possibly easier to stitch on for those type of sampler designs is that it doesn't contain any slubs. It's very fine, but it's not got the slub so much of linen because it's a linen mix. So I think it's 70% viscose, 30% linen. So I was really glad that she sent me that swatch, to be honest, because I wouldn't have thought to use this fabric, and I think it's going to be ideal to stitch on. So I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on the Scarlet letter chart that is on order, and also the silks to go with it when I eventually get around to buying them. So yeah, I thought that was really sweet of her to do that for me. And stitchers, I've always found that stitchers are always very generous. There aren't many nasty stitchers about, hopefully. Second good thing that happened to me stitching wise this month, I'm a member of the Heaven and Earth Designs official Facebook group. There are several Heaven and Earth design groups on Facebook, as I'm sure you know, but this one is the official one, that Michelle comments on, and all the head team comment on. And back at the beginning of the month, I think it was Linda's birthday. If you've ever had any dealings with Head, you'll know Linda. She's on their team, and it was her birthday, and so they decided that they would run a little contest on their page, and that everybody that posted a whip picture between that weekend their names would be put into a drawer for a free chart, which, you know, is pretty good. And Michelle is always such a super generous person anyways. You know, it's ridiculous. Anybody that's had any dealings with Heaven and Earth Designs for, you know, a few years knows how generous she is. So that was cool. So, you know, it was really great to see everybody's whip pictures, because obviously, I mean, I'm on the board, so I see quite a lot of pictures all the time, but I didn't know, it was just nice to have them all there, easy to see. But what we didn't know, all the people that entered, is Michelle, being the generous soul that she is, decided that everybody that actually put up a poster would get a certain free chart, and that free chart was a QS by Amy Stewart. At the time Michelle gave it to us, it hadn't been released at that point. I think it was released the following week, and I'll put it up on the screen. It's called, it's QS FV Nautilus, FV for the Fantastic Voyage. It's a massive chart by Amy Stewart. It's not a bookshelf one, but it's of the same sort. So yeah, so I got a free Heaven and Earth Designs chart. So it's not that I'd ever probably stitch it. I mean, I love the art, but it's not necessarily something I would put the time in to stitch. But, you know, free chart is a free chart, so that's pretty cool. So that was another good thing that happened. And the third good thing that happened was I'm on the Crafty Kitten Facebook group, because I love Dawn's fabrics. They're lovely. And she was having a little giveaway. She, you know, very generously decided that she would produce a piece of fabric for every, you know, basically you commented below if you wanted to be in the giveaway, and she would put their names in the hat, draw a name, and they would win the fabric of their choice in a 2010 limited edition fabric. She was just feeling generous that day and thought she'd just resurrect that colour for that person. And the fabric was lovely. It was very spring-like. It was sort of mottled purples and greens, very light, by lilac and light greens. And I thought, oh, that's a beautiful fabric. So I commented, and I won. So that was really cool. So here is my piece of Crafty Kitten fabric. It's August 2010 limited edition fat quarter, and this is a Jaslyn, so it's like Jobberland really. But here it is, and I think it's really pretty. I mean, I wouldn't have commented if I didn't like it. I wouldn't have wanted to win it, would I? But yeah, so when I saw it on on Facebook when she talked about it, I thought the design that I actually could probably stitch on it would be, I think I mentioned I've got Jane Elliott charts in my stash. I've got the fairy princesses and the historical ladies, but the one that I thought might, better not show you the chart, might be suitable for that fabric is Sleeping Beauty. I think it'll go quite well. It's got purples and greens in it. But it's quite, the trouble is when you show hand-dyed fabric, the light shines through and it looks really splotchy, but it's not. It's quite mottled, a lighter mottle in real life. They don't show up very well on the camera. Yeah, so you know, that's an idea. There is, of course, always the option to find another chart to stitch on it that I don't actually have in my stash. But yeah, I thought that was really great of Dawn to send me out that piece of fabric. So, you know, if you like your hand-dyed fabrics and you haven't checked out Crafty Kitten, make sure you do. Right, now on to the stuff I actually bought and didn't win or get given to me. I know a few of us were tempted by the Heaven and Earth Designs sale that they had this month, and I know a few of us have bought some charts, and also some of us have bought the same charts. So, in full disclosure, I bought 3 charts in the Heaven and Earth Designs 50% sale, 3 QSs. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar yet with Heaven and Earth Designs, they have sales practically every month. In fact, one year I counted how many sales they'd had, and it was 14 sales in a year. So sometimes it's even more than once a month. Basically, if there's any sort of holiday or somebody's Michelle or Bob's birthday or something like that, they have a sale, and the discount ranges from between 25% to 50% off. Nowadays, I usually do only buy charts in the 50% off sale. Sometimes I feel a bit mean about that I don't buy a chart at full price. I don't think I've ever bought a Heaven and Earth Designs chart at full price. But then I think if we if our stitchers only ever bought the charts that we were actually physically planning to stitch from Heaven and Earth Designs, we'd hardly have any charts in our stash. So the fact that they are cheaper means that we actually buy more. So it probably kind of works out alright for Bob and Michelle, possibly. But I don't feel bad about spending money in the 50% off sale. Yeah, so some of you already know the charts that I bought, but here they are. I bought 3 Hannah Lynn charts. I know some people hate them, I can live with that. But they're part of a series and I'm going to get the rest at some point. So I bought QS Scarecrow, I bought QS Good Witch, and I bought QS Tin Girl. So currently at the moment in that series there's Home Sweet Home Dorothy, which isn't a QS, it's a full-size chart, though it's not much bigger than the QS's, to be honest. And there's also QS Cowardly Lioness for me to get in that series. Hannah's also done the Wicked Witch, but it hasn't been charted and released. Well, probably in the process of being charted by Michelle, but it hasn't been released yet. So when that one gets released, that'll go straight onto my wish list, and I'll be getting them in the next 50% sale, or 35% sale, whatever I feel like. I think it's hard not to collect Heaven and Earth Designs charts, and I don't feel guilty about it because there are stitchers out there that have like 300, 400, 500 of them, and I don't have anywhere near that many. But I do like collecting ones in a series, so I'll collect the ones in the Hannah Lynn Oz Girls series, and also I've got a few left to get in the Wonderland Girl series, the Alice in Wonderland Girl set that she's done. As for the QSs I've just bought, I'm hoping that once I finish mini watching, I will probably start one of those 3. I think it'd be nice to do a colourful design, because I've actually stitched 2 black and white Cindy Nielsen charts back to back, because I stitched Mini Unleash the Butterflies, and then after a few months when I finished it I started mini watching, so I think it'd be nice to stitch a colourful Heaven and Earth Designs chart. So that was that one. Another chart I bought, again in a sale. See, I buy things in the sales. I bought Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery chart, because they were having a 26% off sale, because it was Ashley's birthday, 26th birthday last week, or this week now. So they were having a 26% off sale across all their charts. So I thought that would be an ideal time to buy a chart that's been on my wish list. Now, I didn't buy the Once Upon a Time sampler, because as you know, I don't like mystery stitch-alongs, and because I don't know exactly what each one of those, the rest of the year is going to be, I didn't buy it. If I like, once it gets finished and December is released, if I like it, all the little stories, I will buy it. But the one I chose to buy has been on my wish list for a while, and it's one that Busy Lizzie has stitched up and finished in a lovely hoop frame finish, and it's the Tea Time chart. So this is what it looks like, in case you've forgotten. And the reason why I chose this one is we are quite the tea freaks in this house, so it's quite appropriate for us. I know we're British, but to be honest, we didn't actually drink tea in our house properly until about a few months ago. I won't bore you with the story of how it happened. But now we're tea freaks to the point where we have, it's not very much, really. We have about 10 or 12 different types of loose black tea, all different varieties. So we are quite fond of our tea. So I thought that was, quite an appropriate chart for me to stitch. So I'll hopefully be stitching that one up at some point quite soon. I've been looking at fabrics and things, but I haven't decided upon one yet. So yeah, those are my chart stash. I bought 4 charts, which is quite a lot for me, but again, they were all on sale, so I kind of, and who can resist a 50% Heaven and Earth Designs sale? If you're a head stitch, if you don't like Heaven and Earth Designs, then obviously you couldn't care less what discount the charts are at, but if you love Heaven and Earth Designs and they have a 50% sale, you have to be really, really tough on yourself not to buy something, because they're just, really inexpensive. And I'm rambling on again. Look at this, I'm at 40 minutes already and I haven't got through half the stuff yet. Anyway, the one thing I do think with Heaven and Earth Designs is you really, in my opinion, you really do get your value for money, because especially if you buy a chart in the 50% sale, and especially if you already have a DMC thread stash, because it won't cost you very much to kit, And when you think about the amount of time that you will spend stitching that chart, so if you add up the total cost of your materials and then divide it by the amount of time it's going to take you, probably only works out, you know, if it's going to take you like 5, 6, 7 years to stitch, probably only cost you a few quid each month if you break it down. Whereas with something like a chatelaine, I found they stitch up pretty quickly. You know, if all I stitched on was one large mandala design, I could probably stitch it in, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, which doesn't work out quite so much value for money when you consider the massive cost of the materials. You know, divide that by 3, it's going to cost a lot more than a few quid. So that's why I think Heaven and Earth designs are you know, brilliant, because when you actually work out the amount of time you're spending on it and the joy that you get for such an extended period of time on stitching on something, then, you know, they're one of the best value for money designs you can get, if they're your thing, that is, of course. Right, better speed this up then, and I stop wittering on. Second thing I bought, I was really pleased. I got these. I love getting post, full stop, but I love getting post from America, or, you know, abroad, overseas. I don't know why, I'm just a child like that. But you may remember one of my, I've shown a few of her designs, the Sampler Girl. Been one of my favourite designers for quite a long time, and sadly now she doesn't design so many cross stitches because she's really into knitting and Ravelry and all of that type of thing, and she, you know, she's got a podcast, a knitting podcast that she does, and she's on Instagram and all those things. So she doesn't do stitchy things very often now, which is fine. But on her Etsy shop, she had some little stitching bags, you know, just little bags for like notions and things like that. So when I saw them, I had to buy them because 1, they were from her, and 2, they were coming from America, and the postage and everything was like really good, and so I just couldn't resist really. So these are my little notions bags that I bought from her. So this is the first one, really sweet, and in that one I'm keeping my needles. So I've got, because I have several different sizes of needles, got 22 and 24. I use those for pearl threads when I do hard-earner. So that's that one, and the bags are all lined as well, so very good. And this is another one that I got with a Jane Austen quote on it. I just couldn't resist that. Love Jane Austen. Yeah, so that's that one. I haven't decided what I'm going to put in that one yet, but I'm sure I'll find out something. I just like pretty things, and as soon as I saw those, I loved them. She sells out of them quite quickly, but obviously I'll link to her shop. Next I got some more fabric, because obviously I have no willpower. These again are from Chromatic Alchemy. Sam had a 25% off sale, so you know what you can do, 25% off hand-dyed fabric. So I took the opportunity to get some Cashel Opal fabric because the colours were lovely and I couldn't help it. So here's this one. It doesn't come up very well, but it's sort of lilac and mint green, I would say. Lots of little sparkles in it, so that's that one. That one's called Irvine. And the other one I bought, I think, is called Halcyon. Again, got a bit of pinky purple in it. This one's really pretty, I love it. Yeah, it's not showing up very well, but maybe if I fold it in half and the light won't shine through it. But yeah, gorgeous, love it. Yeah, Halcyon, so there you go, that's what they are. Yeah, love Sam's fabric, Chromatic Alchemy, check them out. Any of you Joan Elliott fans out there may know that Joan's got a new design in one of the UK cross-stitching mags. For the life of me, I can't remember whether it's World of Cross-Stitching or Cross Stitch Collection, whatever. It's a mermaid anyway. And Sam has designed, she did a one-off custom order for some lucky stitcher of a hand-painted piece of, I don't know what fabric it was, but it's a hand-painted piece of fabric, and it's got like outlines of paler parts outlined of like seaweed and jellyfish and bubbles, and then you stitch the mermaid in the middle. It's brilliant. I mean, if I was one for mermaids, I would have bought the fabric. So if you like that type of sort of custom thing, check out Sam's Facebook page. I'll link to it below, because she's quite happy at a cost, of course, because it is quite time consuming doing a piece of fabric individually like that. She's quite happy to do custom pieces and also to replicate that sort of type of feel for mermaids and all those type of designs. So definitely, yeah, if you like that type of custom hand-dyed thing, check out Sam's Facebook page. Where are we now? Alright, we're down to the two last exciting things. Well, it's all exciting to me, but probably boring to you, but for the record. Now, my new start for next month. I've gone on about it for long enough. It will be Twisted Rainbow Sampler by Northern Expressions Needlework. Now I can't show you a preview of what the design looks like. Nicole is currently model stitching it herself. Hopefully she'll be finished over the weekend. She will finish the chart and the instructions, and hopefully it'll be up to purchase on her Etsy shop sometime next week. In which case I will be buying it straight away and starting it straight away because I have the materials. But if you want to have a little preview of what the design looks like, it's on Northern Expressions Needlework's Facebook group page. Not the main business page, but her stitching group page. So for that, as I've said before, I have bought Eileen Hoare's Thread Pickers Silks, a pack that she has specifically made and dyed for that design, and these are the silks that Nicole is using to stitch it. So if you look at that, if you have a look at the design, these are the exact same materials, the threads are the exact same materials that Nicole is using. So I'm a crazy person because I'm going to be stitching it on black. Ooh, I was hoping that I could hold it up on the fabric, but they're all going to fall off, aren't they? But there you go. So those are all the silks. Rainbow colours, so there's 18, should be 18 colours there. Each sort of part of the band will be one colour, one of each of the colours. And I'm going to be stitching it on black Belfast, so 32 count. I think Nicole was using Weeks Dye Works black linen, but I just went with my normal. Yeah, so I'm really, really, really excited about starting that design because I've been waiting quite a few months. And you know how much I love stitching Twisted Band Sampler, and this one's going to be just as awesome. And I'm really looking forward to using those really bright silks. I mean, they're like neon almost, some of them. I do find it strange, you know, feel free to comment if you think I'm strange, it's okay, I've got thick skin. But I do find it strange that I can go from stitching something so bright and vivid to stitching something completely the opposite, because I do love my prim designs as well. And I can't quite work it out. I mean, I know I've got a really eclectic taste, but that is just opposite ends of the stitching spectrum in my mind. I don't know if any of you others out there are like that, but that's me. Incidentally, I'd just like to point out for the record that I bought the linen from so-and-so, and it was the only thing I put in my basket. I managed to buy just one thing, the one thing that I needed from so-and-so, which most of you will agree is quite difficult. Same as you guys, you know, that use 123 stitch. It's very hard just to buy the one thing you know you need without putting something extra in the cart. But I was very proud of myself because I managed to do that. I only bought what I needed. And also the silks that I got from Eileen, they were 10% off, you know, so that's really cool. So I managed to get quite a lot of my stash on some sort of sale this month, so that was excellent. And last but not least, obviously, is my little Jody Designs packet for the month. I know some of you have joined up to the fabric and thread clubs, which is fantastic, you won't regret it. I think I saw on Instagram today that Busy Lizzie has already received her threads. So I'm going to show these. So if you are awaiting your threads and you don't want to ruin the surprise, then you can look away now. Which includes you, Aish. But I'm going to show you some things that you're going to be interested in, so you may want to still look. But anyway, here is the limited edition fabric of the month. This time round it was called Pop. So this is my usual 28 count Opal Brittany. So that's the colours there. Fold it in half, you can see it a bit better. And the limited edition thread, so this thread is dyed, this fabric is dyed in the same colours as is represented in the thread. So that's the thread and that's the fabric. Yep, so that's a lovely, nice colour there. Yep, it's a limited edition, so you can't buy that now. It has gone. in place of a new limited edition fabric, which is very exciting, but I will get to that. So here are my threads. I'll just go through them quickly. Right, so here we go. In no particular order is Bitter Chocolate, a nice slightly variegated brown. And this is Star of Wonder. Michelle's got some Christmassy themed ones this month because she obviously came up with the colours in December. So this one's Star of Wonder, and it's actually, I used fabric dyed in these colours for one of my Wee Little Stitches designs, the Firefly design. That was the fabric colour, Star of Wonder. Then we have a Christmas tree. That's green, yellow and red. And we have We Three Kings. That's that one. And, oh, I like this one. I like them all, but you know, it's got purple in. This one's Into Darkness. And then we have Heavenly Host, which is white, pale blue, pale lemon. And then we have Turning Leaves, orange, red and green. Red? No, orange, yellow and green. I do know my colours. And this one I was really excited to get because I love the look of this thread. This one is, Aish had it on her video. This one's called the Sunshine State, and it's just, I love it. Just looking at that thread makes me happy, which I know probably sounds weird to some of you because I know not everybody's into threads like I am and stuff, but if you're into stash and you're into, you know, threads and colours and things, then you know what I mean when I say just looking at threads makes you happy, because this thread makes me happy just to look at it. And especially for Aish, she already has one of these, I know, Lymphoma Fighters, in her little favourite chartreuse green-ish colour. Yeah, so that's Lymphoma Fighters, and here is another one for you, Aish Poison Paradise. So I'm just going to put them up for you so you can see the difference. So you can see the difference in the purples. The greens are very similar, but the purple shades are slightly different. So there you go, just for you, a close-up of those. So that's it. That's all the stash. Oh my goodness, this video is long. Update videos aren't supposed to be this long. I just can't shut up. Anyway, that's it. That's my whips. That's my stash for this month. Next month is very exciting. As any of you know that are on Jody Designs Facebook page, Facebook group, there's a very exciting limited edition thread and fabric that is going to be available from August the 1st. That is all I'm going to say on the subject. If you want to know some more, check out the group, Facebook group, or check out the link that I'll put below to about the fabric and thread. And next month there will be a giveaway on my channel. I'm going to do a Jody Designs giveaway to give some of you the opportunity, if you haven't already, just to the opportunity to win some lovely Jody threads and fabrics. So stay tuned for that next month. I will say next month's going to be a pretty busy month for me, so there probably won't be any videos. I know I've got one more video to do about my cotton and pearl stash. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that really. I love cottons, don't get me wrong. You know, I love my threads. They're not as exciting as silks. There's not as much to say about cottons. So aside from saying, you know, here's some pretty thread, here's some pretty thread, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'll try and come up with something slightly more interesting than that. Yeah, so I shall be back with that video at some point hopefully, and then it won't be until the end of next month, the end of August, that I'll be doing my whip update, stash update, and giveaway. So stay tuned for that. So that'll be a giveaway for all of you lovely subscribers that continue to watch me as I ramble on about my stitching, literally for hours on end. So there you go. So please leave comments, you know, if you want to know something, or, you know, whatever, tell me about what you're doing. Or I just like to read the comments and get to chat to you all about your stitching and different things. You know, that's the whole point of doing this really, to connect with other stitchers and learn from each other. So big thank you to all of you that comment. There's some of you that regularly comment on my videos, and I really feel that I've got to know you a bit better, which is great. So please don't be shy, please comment, as long as you have something nice to say. Because, you know, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. That's my philosophy. which doesn't mean to say if I haven't commented on your video I don't like it. It probably means I've not watched it. I haven't caught up with everybody's videos, but I always, if I've watched a video, I will comment. But there you go, that's it. Sorry for the long video again, but you should know that by now, but I can ramble on. Yeah, so all that's left for me to say is thanks for watching and happy stitching.